when the dominance meets the unexpected. This was exactly the case between Fabiano Caruana and Daniel Naroditsky, as Fabi unexpectedly lost to Daniel in the fifth round of the US Chess Championship. But Naroditsky did showcase a marvelous endgame technique to trump over the rating favorite. So let's start with the game. Started off with e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and bishop e5, so Roy Lopez. a6, bishop a4, and d6. This is known as the improved Steinitz defense, which may seem an odd choice as it's not really theory, not mainline theory at least. However, Naroditsky goes down into a lesser known variation to avoid the mainline theory, which is quite broad, and Caruana would know most of it. So castle, bishop d7, c3, knight to f6, the third most popular move. Black decides to go for a kind of solid position where he will not have that much of initiative. Instead, knight ge7 or g6 are the more fighting and ambitious but riskier choices, which obviously did not make sense to play against Caruana. So one interesting line is also g5. d4, g4, d5, knight c7, bishop takes d7, queen takes d7, knight h4, bishop g7, f4, bishop f6, queen e1. And this is a sharp line contested between Mamad Yarov and Hari Krishna. However, with precise play, white should gain the slight edge. But knight f6 was played, and now white played rook to e1. g6. Daniel again spent 8 minutes on this. However, in the post-match interview, he confirmed that it was his preparation until move 14. So d4, bishop g7. White has multiple interesting choices. However, white decides to play knight be2, the most flexible way, because now white can play knight c4, attack e5, or he can go knight f1, knight e3, kind of stabilize the center, or knight f1, knight to g3, where he can start to expand on the king side. And sometimes as well, knight b3 is possible, just defending this d4 pawns once more, if needed. E takes d4, c takes d4, castle, h3, and knight to b4. And players are still kind of following a relatively known road, as many strong players have still played this, including Wang Hao. Bishop takes d7, queen takes d7, queen to b3. And again, white is making all those challenging moves, but he has already burned 25 minutes down, and it did cost him dearly at the end, as we will see. a5, a3, again just kicking the knight away. Knight c6 and knight to f1. And this move was only chosen in 2 games. However, Naroditsky was expecting something like, not queen takes b7 of course, because rook f8 simply loses the queen. However, he was expecting d5, where after knight to b8, this is the only good retreat left. Queen takes b7, knight to a6, where black aims to get a bit of counterplay with knight to c5, attack the white queen, rook f8, and take over the thing that white does not have that good of a queenside structure. Queen to b3, knight c5, queen c4, queen a4, queen takes a4, knight takes a4, and white's queenside does look miserable. Well, something like rook b8, knight d7, knight c5, black can just pressurize the queenside, and in the end, he will certainly win a pawn. Knight c6, knight f1, the best choice I would say. And now a4. And Daniel again tries to create an outpost on b3 for his piece. So once the queen moves, like queen to d3, the knight will simply come to b3, like he played. And okay, the opening has gone quite well for black. However, now white starts to play very precise moves, and black kind of goes behind. Bishop to g5, knight to b3, rook a d1, h6. Here, as you can see, this knight is a monster right now, controlling these important squares, as now the rook has no longer has access over this open c file. However, h6 was not the best move. d5 was the best. And the key idea for black to go is that after e5, knight to e4, both of their knights is on such good active squares because he is simply winning another tempo attacking this bishop. Once this bishop moves, let's say to d2 or e3, well then f6, undermining the center. And after, if e takes f6, then simply knight takes f6 and black will just get another open file for himself. So all in all, this would be great achievement for black as he has got a wonderful position after the opening. However, h6 was played and now bishop takes f6. Bishop takes f6 and knight 1d2. And suddenly, as you can see, white is able to trade off all of these good knights and it goes a bit unbalanced because now there's a bishop against a knight. So what is better? Knight would be better in a close position, bishop in an open position. So knight to a5. Black does not really want to trade his knight. If knight takes d2, well now simply knight takes d2. Again, this knight is now coming to c4 where it would be slightly better placed in advancing e5 next. Bishop to g7 and f4. This is the next idea, of course, because once this knight moves, f4 can be played and this is just solidifying the center. And next move maybe e5, maybe d5, maybe even f5 trying to go for a kingside attack. And white just simply grabs space in the center. So knight to a5 seems very reasonable. And knight to b1, so white wants to reroute his knight to c3, b5, queen to c2, bishop g7, knight to c3, c6. And this is kind of like a waiting move. What should white do right now? Do you want to go straight away e4 or maybe d4 or just keep waiting, just maneuver your pieces around? Well, maneuvering your pieces around would not be well because where can you improve your position? Bringing the queen to a2, well, it would still do nothing there because something like queen b1 can be simply met by knight to c4 where now this queen's view is simply blocked. e5 was opted by Fabi, but d5 was a slightly better option because now after c takes d5, rook takes d5, we have a target to attack on d6 because now, okay, knight c4, now white e5 is possible. You can't really take it because of course you would win a piece as, remember, there's a pin. However, black would have to play a move like rook a e8 or rook f e8 where now rook d1 again pressurizing the d file, and once bishop takes e5 is possible, well now knight takes b5 again pressurizing d6 and white would be slightly better. However, black can still defend with accurate play. But e5 just kind of lets these pawns trade and now the weak d6 pawn would no longer be there for white to attack. So black waits with rook f8, just controlling the e file, knight e4. And at this point, a fun fact, Caruana had 25 minutes. And in a couple of moves, you will see how many minutes he had left. Knight to c4, e takes d6, knight takes d6. And okay, knight takes d6 is imprecise, but it's kind of like a human move. Better would have been actually to play rook c8, directly just aiming to play c5 and open this c file up. And this maintains a good position because black doesn't really need to capture the d6 pawn anytime soon because white cannot really defend it. And now the c4 knight also cannot be chased. Something like b3 would never really work out because queen takes, and there's another weakness on e3. So knight takes d6 was imprecise but a human move. Knight to e5. White responds with alacrity, just attacking this knight. Where does this knight queen go? Queen goes to f5, g4. Again attacking the queen. Where does the queen go? Queen e6, only move. And knight to c3. And now white gets a bit too ambitious. And Caruana here, first of all, refuses to get one more pawn up and just play this position with a pawn up. You will see in the variation which I show you. But he had also only 7 minutes left. Now, here, how do you win a pawn? Well, pause the video now and try to find it out yourself. Well, here, knight takes d6, queen takes d6, knight takes e6, and oh, we won a pawn. But black still has some counterplay with bishop takes d4, or first rook takes e1, and then bishop takes d4. Don't play bishop takes d4 straight away, because then you would simply lose the bishop. So here, knight takes d4, queen takes d4, queen c6, again, double attacking. So now black just defends this, and now simply rook to e8 check. Rook takes e8, queen takes e8, king to g7, queen takes b5, and, well, white would be, of course, better, and this is not really the best position black wants to play, as he would have to defend a pawn down situation against the world number 2. However, knight c3 is a bit too ambitious, and now black plays rook c8, again aiming for c5. Rook e2. Anytime this knight moves, well, it's not really gonna matter because any sacrifices trying to win a pawn never work. Knight takes e6 is not possible because of queen takes e1 check simply. Rook takes e1, rook takes e1, and well, a knight and 2 rooks for a queen would never be good. So rook e2, white just defends this rook. Now, a very good move, queen to b3. This endgame would of course be fantastic for black as the b3 pawn will be very advanced and we will have a pawn majority on the queen side. And if you try to avoid the endgame, well, this just doesn't look good because simply after rook e d8, this queen is going to be chased after c5. You can't really take it because, well, knight moves with attacking the queen. And it gets very complicated, but not the best for white. Queen takes b3, that's why was played. A takes b3 and rook, king to g2. c5, d takes c5, knight c4. And now till here it is still equal, but Caruana forgot about an important tactical detail. Here, white played knight takes c4. Here, the best move, however, was knight g3, just trying to maintain equilibrium by defending all of these pawns and not letting any other pawns go forward. Rook takes e2, knight takes e2, knight takes b2. Yep, black has 2 doubled pawns, which are going to be quite advanced. However, knight c1 is the important nuance you have to remember. After rook takes c5, knight takes b3, this would still be a draw as even if you lose the a3 pawn, the rook and knight will be able to stop the b5 pawn. So knight c4, knight takes c4. And now try to figure out how black should respond. Well, the first few moves are obvious. Rook takes e2, knight takes e2. Here we have to play. However, here I think Caruana must have thought about knight to b6, which attacks this rook. And, ooh, this rook has to move, right? Well, black has this good move, bishop takes c3. Knight takes c8, bishop takes b2, rook to b1, bishop takes a3, rook takes b3, bishop takes c5. And, okay, black is much better. However, white still might be able to hold a draw. And this would be better in practical chance. But knight takes e2 is not good at all. B takes c4. And now rook to c1, bishop takes b2. And black went on to win this game, which I will show you. But here, again, your move, white to play. And how can he draw this game? Pause the video if you need to. Well, here, knight c3 was the only chance to draw this game because bishop takes c3, b takes c3, rook takes c5. And it's surprising how there are 2 pawns and it's a protected passed pawn, this b pawn. However, black still can't win this game. Well, let's say king f3, king f8, and now a4. King e7, king e4, king e6, rook to d8, And somehow it's not a loss because rook b5 here is not possible as this pawn controls it. And okay, what happens if we just play rook b5 here? Well, now white has simply king to e4. If b2, rook to b1, and this pawn will fall no matter what, white will simply play this way, take the pawn, and win the game. Or he can of course go king d4, king takes c4, which would be of course the better way to go. But okay, rook b5 straight away is not possible. So king f8, king e7, king e6, rook d8. But how does black continue if he tries to attack this pawn? Well, now simply king d4, attacking this c4 pawn. If you take it, rook to b8. And now this rook is pinned to the defense of this pawn. And this rook is of course stopping the b pawn from going on. So black just can't do anything. He can't really damage white's pawn structure on the king side as they're quite stable after f3 especially. And so this is a draw. But it's very hard to spot. And white, that's why I played rook c1. Thinking that, okay, we are attacking the c4 pawn, why not? But now bishop takes b2. Here rook takes c5 is also possible, but bishop takes b2 is way more precise. Rook takes c4, bishop takes a3. And black is completely winning as his b pawn is now going to be extremely strong with the aid of the bishop on a3. b2, knight to c3, and very nice move, bishop to f8. What's the idea? Well, we're just transferring this bishop to the long diagonal where it will be able to defend this b2 pawn much better. Knight to b1, bishop g7, king f3, king f8, in h4. One very beautiful line which Daniel was talking in the post-match interview was king after king e4, king e7, king d5, and now rook d8 check. King c5, rook to d1, rook e4 check, king d8, the only move. King b6, rook takes b1. And can you evaluate this position? I mean, what is the evaluation? Is it white is winning, or maybe black is winning, or it's a simple draw? Pause the video if you need to. Well, here, after c7 check, king to d7, and rook to e7 check, it is actually black who is winning. King takes e7, queen. Oh, white queen first. And there will be an umpteenth amount of checks, right? Well now, bishop d4 check. King to b5, rook c1. Queen b7 check, and now king to f8. Queen b8 check, king g7, and the king hides. And now b1 queen is going to come with checkmate, almost. And black will be a rook and a bishop up, while white does not have any checks available. And so you have to really calculate that till the end to figure out what it is actually. Because at this position, you might even think that white is winning because he's promoting first. However, he's not. Instead, however, white played h4, which kind of is the best practical chance, trying to just ruin black's king side, but it didn't really work out as Daniel played precisely. King e7, king d6, rook to b4, rook takes c6, rook b7, bishop e5, knight d2, and again, your last position for you. Black to play and try to find the correct plan. Well, here, simply rook to c2, attacking this knight. King e3, and now king c6. The plan is to trade the rooks. And rook c2 is a very smart move because now, where does this rook move? It can't go to b8. It can't go to b6 or b5. It can't go to b4 as well because there's bishop c3. And once it goes to b3, rook c3 check, trades the rooks. And if it moves along the 7th rank, well now simply rook takes d2 would occur, king takes d2 and b1 queen. So rook b3 was forced, and now this occurs. Knight has to go to b1 and bishop b4. This knight is simply trapped. Where are you going? And so now black will simply just go to the king side, try to gain an extra passed pawn, and in the end, black just defends this pawn. The white can't do anything against this b2 pawn, and black will simply win the g6 pawn and the game. And white resigned here, as it's kind of impossible to fight these two passed pawns, which are quite distant. And this was a huge win for Naroditsky, and he managed to turn kind of a poor performance so far by beating the world number 2. And a very hard knockout for Caruana, who is now at 2.5 out of 5. Well, that's it for me. Thank you for watching. Bye.